Good afternoon, distinguished participants and guests of the Gaida Forum. We're glad to welcome you at this presentation of the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies on Human Potential. On October the 24th, 2018, a government decree was published on the provision of grants to leading scientific centers, and one of them has been the Center for Interdisciplinary Research, which is a consortium of 4 organizations, the heads of which are here with us today. Let me introduce them first. Mr. Yaroslav Kuzminov, Rector of the High School of Economics and National Research Institute. We also welcome the Rector of RANEPA, Mr. Vladimir. Welcome. It gives me pleasure to introduce the Rector of MGIMO University, Mr. Anatoly Torkunov, and also the Director of Institute of Ethnology and Anthropology of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Mr. Dmitry. Dmitry Anatolyevich, we are glad to welcome you. Of course, I welcome the participants and the guests, dear panelists. I would also like to welcome you and congratulate you on this huge event. It's emblematic. A great deal of work has already been done, but still much is ahead of you and ahead of the organizations that you are heads of. And we are going to talk about this because we are pressed for time. Unfortunately, we only have 45 minutes allocated for our session. We're going to talk about the center and what it's gonna do. We are simply going to call it the center, if you don't mind. So my question is, why did you decide to join forces? On the one hand, it's good to work in a team, but on the other hand, it's difficult to grow accustomed to working with one another. And could you also tell us about the name of the center and how the idea was born, Mr. Kuzminov? Yes, the idea has been floated along. It was floated a long time ago, and it was part of our national strategy for supporting scientific and technological development. What's new is that for the first time, the government has decided to support, as a leading center, a center that specializes in humanitarian sciences, in humanities, in anthropology, and related scientists. It centers on a human being, on issues of social development, not on mathematics or physics. You see, traditionally, mathematics, physics, natural sciences have always been a part of Russia's advantages, competitive advantages too, energy as well. And in that regard, our society has a sentiment that we are lagging behind in terms of social sciences, which is truly not the case. If you have a look at how sciences have been developing over the last 10 to 15 years, you'll see that Russia has done great strides, especially in social and humanitarian sciences. If you look at Russia's representation in the world, rankings in terms of publications in the leading journals and magazines, you will see that apart from physics and mathematics, following them, social sciences have moved to the forefront, and they take up a significant share of our publications, and humanities are not far behind. And this, to a large extent, is thanks to the teams we are heading. And I have to say that this process is not confined to the 4 institutions represented on this panel. There are many other universities and research centers across our country. It is a wonderful example that attests to the fact that Russia can accomplish great things. And it's not that surprising. First and foremost, Russia is a well-developed country. It's a well-educated country. And Russia has been transitioning from an administrative, a planning economy, from an authoritarian society to a market-based economy, to a society based on this market economy and also on democratic principles. And this is a huge experience, and this is a wonderful ground, soil for research by ethnic scientists, by anthropologists, by those who are involved in social sciences. This might come surprising, but it is only natural that we have done this. It was a logical step. Our organizations, our institutes, our universities have been working for quite some time, our researchers, our scholars. Well, of course, it's not done at the rector level. It's not like Mr. Torkunov and I are meeting and I say, Anatoly, let's be friends. Well, of course, we can act as experts ourselves, not just as leaders of our respective institutions, but our scholars are doing the work, and teams are set up, conferences are organized, workshops too, and our scholars are not just reading the works of one another. No, these teams have become increasingly intertwined. We learn from one another, which is an absolutely natural process. Vladimir Alexandrovich, let me move on to you. I'm going to get back to our previous speakers too. What are the scholarly priorities of the center? Briefly, of course, given the depths of the matter at hand. Well, let me add to what Yaroslav Kuzminov has said. This is a project that has been born of our previously existing cooperation. It is not an artificial thing. As teams, as scholars, we have been working not just as educational institutions. No, we have been carrying out research projects on different subjects. This consortium and this agenda seek to give solution and response to challenges the world is faced with, and they are manifold. They are multi-faceted, anthropological, energy-related, demographically related. So it's about a comprehensive study of humanity. And this is one of the most important priorities in today's social sciences and scientists. To be more precise, we've got 7 priorities and more than 25 big projects. The 7 priorities are the following: the social and humanitarian dimension of human potential, demographics, employment, and the shaping of new competences and skills. When a crisis strikes, employment always moves to the forefront, starting from Marx and his understanding of employment throughout the 20th century and other works on that too. Now, the human person during the era of technological transformation, we're at a juncture of drastic changes, and this experience of the utmost importance. We cannot do without neurocognitive sciences and mechanisms of social behavior, environmental and climate factors, everything related to sustainable development. And the last thing is human potential in terms of security and safety in today's world. And safety and security are given the widest interpretation possible. There are different aspects, like the military aspect, the man-made aspect, the natural aspect, and all others. And I don't think I need to explain to you why these priorities, because each is quite natural, and behind each and every one there is a huge history, of course. Mr. Torkunov, well, of course, it is a world-class research center, and I think that international cooperation is going to be one of the key areas of your work. How does it fit your agenda, especially given the global developments? First, I would like to once again highlight what Yaroslav Kuzminov has said. This consortium is a wonderful testimony to institutional cooperation of institutions working in education and science. And I think this is a very good example, groundwork for the future. It is a big project, and it also has a very deep international dimension, and that is well deserved, because the heads of these universities that are gathered here represent universities with a long history of international ties, and these ties are multifaceted too in terms of geographical scope. You can have a look at the screen. You see that it's more than 1,000 international agreements, more than 6,000 foreign students in our universities. There are 40 international laboratories. Annually, we hold up to 100 conferences, not just in Moscow or in the regions. We are also co-organizing conferences hosted by European and Asian countries, and of course throughout the CIS space, the former Soviet Union countries. Our teachers, our professors, our scholars are well-renowned experts at international organizations, starting from the UN to the World Bank to other world organizations. And of course, I cannot but mention that foreign researchers make up to 10% of our researchers, and around 220 foreign professors, but the practice will tell, are going to participate in this project. What I mean is that we have already fostered deep ties with foreign institutions, and we're going to link them to this project. But at the initial stage, it's going to be around 45 universities from countries all over the world. In other words, I believe this project should have a very deep international dimension in terms of our soft power, in terms of promoting our social sciences and humanities. We often say that social scholars owe a great debt to society and world community. Maybe that's the case, and we are hopeful that this project, once implemented, is going to allow us to leap forward, far forward. Let me clarify what are the priorities in terms of promoting this institution and the global scope, the human potential, or maybe some other priorities. What are the priorities for the nearest future? Well, first, we are going to bring together different platforms, the diplomatic, the social, humanitarian, and we've got three priorities. First, human being and countering challenges to the stability of the world, global and geographical aspects of implementing human potential. Yes, each and every topic is of a global nature, given the challenges we're up against currently. Thank you very much. I'll get back to you now. Dmitry Anatolyevich, your institute specializes in anthropological diversity. Could you clarify a little bit what are these factors of resilience and diversity amid the world challenges? Thank you. I'm very glad that our institute has joined this consortium, accepting the kind invitation extended to us by the colleagues. It is of great importance. I'll just briefly underscore once again that bringing together university science and academic science is the model to emulate going forward. This is probably the best model to base our research on. Now, as far as anthropological diversity is concerned, I don't know what the associations, the readers, ordinary people, taxpayers, spectators will have when they hear this thing, anthropological diversity. But this is not biological diversity per se, physical diversity. There's a very good old term, ethnography, which later came to be replaced by ethnology. So we're talking about language, social, cultural diversity of humanity. Anthropology consists of several elements: social anthropology, biological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, however strange that may be, and there is also archaeology, that is the four-element model that we've had since the beginning of the 20th century all across the world. And this structure allows us to look into every little thing related to human existence, cultural or social forms that our life takes, that allows us to survive, to live. But we have a very wide look at it, at the whole globe, in all corners of the world. As far as Russia is concerned, we're looking at all the territories, at all the regions of our country. We're carrying out research, building maps, working with big data, comparing huge chunks of information, which in turn allows us not to get fixated on small things. It allows us, on the contrary, to give explanation to big, large-scale phenomena, why people are behaving like this in this situation, during the stress, during time of social challenges. How do we explain that? And this is exactly what we seek to do in our activities. This is what the Institute has been doing for the last 9 decades since its establishment. As far as resilience is concerned, I'll allow myself a little joke. We're accustomed to thinking in large categories, as it were. We're trying to explain everything in one go. This is how human mind works. If you are too lazy to think, you want to come up with one single explanation that is going to explain away everything. And in the past, we tried to come up with a kind of a notion of Soviet nation, one single, unified, saying that unity is good. Now we came to believe that cultural, social diversity is magnificent, is something we need, without denying or refuting either one or the other thing, or praising either one or the other thing. I think this is one of the most important tasks right now our institute is confronted with. We are trying to find out what the link is between diversity on the one hand and resilience and sustainable development on the other, across all territories, during all times, even during times of global challenges or other challenges. The same explanatory model is used, usually, but it's not the case in reality. And if we try to tackle this task, find a response to that, I think this is going to be a huge contribution on our part. Correct me if I'm wrong, thank you. But as far as I understand, the organizations you are heading, institutes and universities, are using the groundwork you've got, because for decades, as we know, a great deal of work and research work too has been carried out. So you're not beginning from scratch. You're not building something that is completely new, that comes out of nowhere. Mr. Kuzminov, if I'm not mistaken, your university is working its resources, it has analytical systems for analyzing big data, I4A, if I'm not mistaken. What other resources are you using to make this work more fruitful, more targeted, to raise its quality? How many more resources is going to be needed to accomplish the tasks that you have voiced?
When you speak about a world-class center, you speak about two dimensions. The first is the academic product and the ideas created by the researchers inside the center. And number two is the toolkit that is provided to the academia and researchers across the globe. Well, primarily, in particular, those dealing with societies and economies in transition. We have several major tools now that are utilized broadly beyond the High School of Economics and RANEPA and the establishments that we represent. Most importantly, it's the Russian longitudinal household survey carried out since 1993. We have accumulated and amassed a huge array of data that is in public access. 3 to 4 PhD are defended, basing on that per annum. Longitudinal survey is an observation of a family over a time span. You know, it is real complicated. Worldwide, there's only around 10 major longitudinal surveys. One of these is performed by us. Another tool is the archive of the sociological data that we have been maintaining for over a decade. And that includes also data from the Soviet sociologists. These two tools have been recognized and acknowledged by the European Commission as mega-science items, like synchrophosotron, maybe another example of a mega-science item. But you know, social sciences also come into play. You mentioned the IFORA system. In our presentation, we have a slide by them, by the by. Now they have 350 million documents on board in IFORA. This is the first case ever when, building upon the big data and neural networks, we start analyzing all the academic papers, course books, and articles. And a big number of companies order different types of research and surveys from IFORA. You can perform public sentiment research with the help of their data or study the efficiency of laws. And number 4 is the Cognitive Science Center by Vasily Klucherov that now has won the international acclaim. They have a cluster of unique equipment, and we have been actively contributing to that. We will definitely be leasing its potential and its capability to researchers from worldwide. Our colleagues have the archive and museum collection and pan-anthropological capability. The scale may be lower, but put together it comprises a major library. Ghana, full of information for research at the regional level and other levels, and want to make it available and accessible for all the Russian and international researchers, so that they have free access to that, the targets of their research. Vladimir, now a question to you, a clarification question. The breakthrough term has been cited, and breakthroughs in research and rapid results, as Vladimir has said, and Dmitry has also mentioned. So what are the results of the center, what level would mean a breakthrough in the research and academic performance? What targets and goals do you have? Anything that would be spellbinding, worth a film or a book? Well, I would mind, most importantly, speaking about a silver bullet or a miracle or a magic wand. Oh, what a pity. Yeah, I'm kidding. Me too. What we need is clear, transparent studies based on the data, evidence-based. And we have unique institutes with unique teams of authors. We believe that potentially in this country and worldwide we see lots of demand for neurocognitive models as part of educational programs in sociology and social pathology. Leveling the inequality is another problem. Like we also recall the Karl Marx's work Capital, chapter 24, when we speak about inequality. But today inequality is about the pace of economic growth. For example, we should stop politicizing the problem and engage in in-depth going research. And another set of problems is about the economic growth, the low pace of growth, which is an endemic thing for many countries, mostly developed ones. So, will it last long? Will it be permanent? Or probably we should change the calculations methodology? Or has the world depleted the growth model of today? And we should be quite earnest in responding, and it should be evidence-based and big data-based, and it should be interdisciplinary at the end of the day. Today at the forum we had a session to discuss happiness. Is happiness an economic category? And would it be correct to measure the dynamics of economic growth and everybody being unhappy at the same time? Or should everybody be happy instead? Is happiness measured by the economic or political metrics? All that merits digging down and looking into that. Well, measurements don't have a lot to do with breakthroughs, and our consortium has set as targets high parameters in top-notch international journals. So we should have more publications in these journals. Karl Marx said that a good theory is very practical, and what we can offer will be used in practice, will be applied. Yes, thank you. Anatoly, Torkunov, a quick question to you. It has been mentioned that there is the concept of the soft power. Diplomats have been using it often. And it is the talk of the day. Education is one of the important tools of soft power. Do you plan to unveil educational programs and new curricula and courses in your center? Yes, sure, definitely. We will develop educational programs, and following up on my colleague, the previous speaker's point, I must say that we hope to resolve lots of issues in social development and human capital development. And I'd like to cite, to quote the song of our youth, that the science has no beginning and no end, as well as life. So we are in the mainstream, I believe. Still, we will be able to make our modest but weighty contribution to the global science, in this domain at least. As regards education programs, we will forge new educational programs, around 38 of them, which will be a 30% coverage in terms of the young researchers and students in all the domains. We have the master's and bachelor's programs for promising majors in human capital and human potential development, then programs that will allow for breakthrough in results in academic and research domains, and other international, I emphasize, programs, and both Russian and foreign lecturers will be teaching there. What matters for us is also the regional domain, and our center has offices and outlets in 54 regions of the Russian Federation, and High School of Economics and MGIMO University has lots of offices and centers across the country. That will be instrumental to multiply the efficiency of our research, and we will engage regional colleagues to our work. CIS also, yes, the CIS nations also will participate. This is one of the important goals of ours related to the international dimension. And I think that we are also delivering a new project, quite promising, the new methodology of studying political and business elites. That will help us look at the developments, current developments in the CIS countries. That matters a lot for us to ensure our security, safety, and economic development. Dmitry Anatolovich, why do you think that interdisciplinary dimension is of so much importance for the current anthropology? Thank you for your pertinent question. I'll probably start with the end, with the second part, as regards the anthropology. Everything that has been raised and brought up by the colleagues today about the development of science and education are overarchingly important things. They are important for anthropology in this country as well. That has been around for more than 100 years globally. Us in this country, over the past 25 years, has made a giant leap forward. Well, it is our lot. We trail and then we leap forward, and then we trail again. So this is typical of our society and of the anthropology as well. Back in 1920s and 1930s, we were on par with others. Currently, the main objective of the socio-cultural anthropology, with all the spin-offs and branches of biological and linguistic anthropology, is to be able to organize the educational system in such a way that it would allow us, in the forthcoming 5 to 7 years, to train people that would be capable of teaching and forging international ties and sorting out a huge tangle of problems that today's society is faced with. Well, you should be able to describe the birch bark footwear, traditional birch bark footwear, lapti, that is typical of our culture, and you should at the same time be able to look into conflicts, different types of conflicts. And anthropologists should act as mediators or middlemen with respect to economic development or some of the decisions that are made. We have a role to play there. And we should do that. And how to play this role? Okay, in this case, let me proceed with the first part of the question and talk about the interdisciplinary nature. It is a vulnerable, weak term because the definition is not clear at this point. In our sciences, to a no less extent than in physics, biology, and other natural sciences, we have specializations and a breakdown of these, and we stop speaking one and the same language all of a sudden. And the more we try to explain things to one another, the better and the more fruitful our synergies will be. We should have some common ground, but there is another thing I want to mention, if you allow me, just a minute, no more. All types of research are specific. We often use the streetlight effect. When a drunkard is fumbling for the keys under a street lantern because he can see it better in that limelight. We look at the professionals, specialists, but as soon as we find something outside that light spot and try to resolve that, we may have this breakthrough. Thank you. We still have several minutes till the end. So the finalizing question, we have been talking the human potential. The HR is a major driver. We all know that. Are there performers of those goals, people that will be able to deliver? We have lots of talented, clever, profound people that could do that. Do we have a shortage of personnel to match the global goals of your center? If so, how are you going to resolve that? We know that personnel shortage has been endemic for this country's science. I'm looking at you, Dmitry. Yes, thank you. I'm nodding. The answer is yes. We have able and capable people that can steward us through, and still we have some shortage, and otherwise we wouldn't have established the consortium. We cannot live on our own in isolation. Four major establishments cannot live in a vacuum. We need international staff, and we need to train new staff that will become part of our teams and inject fresh mental blood. So, will you add, please, Mr. Torkunov? Well, we'll be able to breed our own champions, our own talents, and we can see that in our master's courses we have lots of talented people, and We definitely interact with our international colleagues and rely on their best practices, and I think that in this respect we have overcome the difficulties. Vladimir, what about the personnel? It's always difficult.
Yes, it's difficult, but easy at the same time. We need talented people who want to learn more and to learn well and to work more and to work much. So the best universities are not the ones where they teach well, but the ones that attract those who know how to learn. It's a cycle, it's chemistry, it's a very delicate matter, it's all very subtle. I'm always talking about Marx and you quote Stalin, the staff is everything. No. There is no politics involved. I'm just saying that as a historian of economy. It's about the issue of attractiveness. If there is a good project, the good employees, good specialists are going to come. And the like flock to the like. Smart people go to other smart people, so the most important thing is to prevent any barriers in that regard. Mr. Kuzminov, what do you think? I'm afraid of making any more quotes, lest I should be caught on that. You know, times have changed. We are constantly talking about shortages of people, of personnel, but the nature of this shortage has changed. We see that our computer sciences, physicists, engineers have a constant dearth of people who could come to doctorate studies because there are not enough. Well, there's specialists, but it's different with social sciences. You're not as much tied up in one laboratory. You can work at a big university, be that in Moscow or in Boston, and it has developed all across the country. We see a huge upsurge in the quality of people who want to work, to do science, some scholarly work in Moscow, in Vladivostok, and in social sciences and humanities, it's felt more than in natural sciences. And I think we've got to take advantage of that. Thank you very much. We are running out of time. The only thing that is left for me to do is to thank our panelists. We have held a session entitled The Presentation of the Center for Interdisciplinary Research on Human Potential. We're going to closely follow the successes of the center, the preliminary results, and the breakthrough it is bound to achieve. I would like to thank the panelists and also